All right, now we are going to read the rest of this children's book version of Sunjata's story. So now his journey is going to begin. The journey of any hero begins when they must leave their home and begin a quest. So we have to figure out how Sunjata is going to, why he's going to leave his home, where he's going, what he's doing. All right, so back to the virtual text. This part is on page 23 of your virtual text. When Sasuma Berati heard of Sunjata's new strength, she feared he would challenge her son for the throne. So remember, that was the king's first wife. When he died, she made sure her son became king. But now that she knows Sunjata can stand, she's like, oh, well, maybe he's going to try to take over. Late one night, she called the 9 great witches of Mali to her bedside. You must use your powers to kill Sunjata, she commanded. Our magic is useless without his anger, said the witches. Go to his mother's garden and pick her spices, hissed Sasuma. That will surely make him angry enough. But when Sunjata found the witches in his mother's garden, he greeted them courteously and helped them gather the spices. Alas, Queen, the witches reported, our magic cannot hurt a heart full of kindness. You can do nothing against him. So his father's first wife tries to have him killed by some witches, but because he is kind to them, they cannot hurt him. So he survives. So Sasuma Barate bided her time. When Sujata was 10 years old, she had Bala Fasiki sent away to the court of Soso. This evil land was ruled by Sumanguru, a sorcerer king, whose huge armies and powerful magic were greatly feared. Impressed by the young griot's skill, Sumanguru resolved to keep him in Soso forever. So now his father's first wife sends his griot away. Sunjata was angered and saddened by the loss of his friend, and Sogolon's wise words brought him new pain. We must leave Mali, she said, before our kin fall victim to the queen's hatred. When you are a man, you will return and set all things right. Sunjata reluctantly agreed. That evening, Sogolon and her children left all they knew and loved. All right, so that is how Sunjata's journey begins. His father's first wife is angered when he starts to walk. She sends 9 witches to his house to kill him. However, because he is kind, they cannot harm him. So then she sends his griot away. And then finally, Sunjata's mother realizes her son is not safe, and she says, we must go. So Sunjata leaves home. He is essentially exiled for his life to be safe. So an image could be just someone walking away from home, someone leaving, someone going on a long journey. Anything to help you remember? All right, and now we're going to learn about some of the obstacles he faces. So a hero's journey is never easy. He's going to meet some obstacles on his way to exile, once he's exiled, and then on his way back. So let's read. For 7 years, the family traveled the harsh road of exile, journeying through forest and plain from kingdom to kingdom. Rulers, fearful of the queen's displeasure, denied them shelter, and some gates were closed against them. Yet Sunjata grew in mind and spirit, even as his body grew in stature and strength. In all these trials, Sunjata never forgot Bala Fasiki, his griot. At every court and caravan, he heard of the growing power of Sumanguru, the sorcerer king, and of the unhappy lands under his control. The family ended their travels in Mima. Weary and ill, Sogolon rested by the banks of the Niger. Sunjata found favor with the king of Mima, who took him on campaigns against the mountain tribes that troubled his kingdom. Observing Sunjata's courage and leadership, he decided to make the young prince his heir. He taught Sunjata the ways of war and government and looked upon him as a son. So for 7 years, Sunjata and his family are trying to find somewhere to go. They finally find a place. Sunjata is accepted by the king. The king has no sons, so the king makes him his heir. So it seems like Sunjata has found fortune even though he had to leave home. But one day, frantic messengers pleaded to speak with Sundiata. Son of lion and buffalo, they implored, return to your homeland. Whatever honors you hold in Mima, leave them and deliver your land from fire and sword. What has happened? Asked Sundiata. Sumanguru has invaded Mali. The king and his mother have fled. Our people have taken to the bush to fight, but they are leaderless. We have consulted the seers, and they say that only you can save Mali. The throne of your father awaits you. The moment has come, my son, whispered Sogolon. Your destiny is about to be fulfilled. So Sundiata seems like his life has finally settled down. He's got structure. He's got, he's going to be the king of this new land of Mima, but then people come and find him. He has to go home and fight the sorcerer king. His mother knows this is his destiny, so she encourages him to go. Sundiata lost no time. The king of Mima gave him half his army, rank upon rank of armored horsemen carrying great iron spears. Riding at the head of this column, Sundiata stopped at every kingdom that aided him during his long exile and gathered more troops. So we have to remember he spent like 7 years traveling, trying to find a place. He made some friends along the way. So now as he's going back home, he's picking up more and more people to help him fight the sorcerer. Soon a mighty host covered the savannah, and the thunder of hooves could be heard many miles away. The two armies clashed on the plain of Krina. All day the battle raged. Aside his gray charger, Sundiata galloped through the fray, searching for Sumanguru, the sorcerer king. Suddenly, Bala Faseke was at Sundiata's side. The two friends embraced. I escaped from the palace and followed Sumanguru's army, hoping to find you, said Bala. For these 7 years, I have pretended allegiance to the sorcerer, and I have managed to discover his weakness. He pulled a wooden arrow from his robe. It was tipped with the spur of a white rooster. This is the Tana of Sumanguru, Bala continued. The charm he believes will erase his power. The slightest touch will defeat him utterly. Sundiata took the arrow and spurred his horse back into battle. He made his way through the dust and confusion to the hill where the sorcerer stood. Notching the arrow, he drew his mighty bow and let it fly. The arrow flew straight and true, cutting through Sumangaro's cape and grazing his shoulder. At the sight of the Tana, the sorcerer let out a harsh cry and galloped from the field. Pursued by Sundiata and Bala Faseke, Sumanguru fled to the slopes of Mount Kulikoro and staggered into a dark cave. Powers of night, he cried, do not let me fall into the hands of Sundiata. It is said then that Sumanguru became one with the stone of the cave, for he was never seen again. Disheartened by his flight, the sorcerer's army went down to defeat. All right, so let's stop and do some summarizing before we finish the story. All right, so obstacles. So the first obstacle is that Sundiata has to wander and find a new home. Okay, so that takes a while. He finds a new home, and then the next obstacle is once he has found a new home in Mima, messengers come for him, and that's because an evil sorcerer has taken over his homeland. He returned home. He has to gather troops. There's essentially a war. So the children's story makes this a lot shorter, but it's not like he's just going back home and everyone's happy to see him. Like he has to have battles and things along the way. So basically, he has to engage in the war on the way home, and then he must fight the evil sorcerer. So a lot of battles, a lot of fighting. For the images, I would just think of, to me, this is just like war. He has lots of battles. Exile and war, basically fighting a lot. So I'm just going to put an image of war. I don't like the World War II images. Let's see. Ancient war? Okay, sure. That's more like it, I guess, as it is created. But just some kind of image of people like fighting with bows and arrows, anything like that. There's a lot of war, a lot of fighting. Those are essentially his obstacles. All right, the journey almost ends. Every hero reaches a point where the obstacles are so great that he or she almost gives up or is almost defeated. So the children's story didn't go into this too well, but in the real story, the battle with the sorcerer is really difficult. He can't hit the sorcerer with an arrow. He cannot strike him with an arrow until he's reunited with his griot, who gives him essentially a charm. He gives him a little piece of a chicken that can kill him. But then, even once he hits him with an arrow, he cannot capture him. Um, but once he shoots him, he still does not capture him. He runs away. So the story is told different ways at different times, but essentially, like, this is the big epic battle. Sunjata almost loses, and the sorcerer does get away, although he is then never seen again. So the journey almost ends. I think of bows and arrows because he really struggles to hit the sorcerer with the arrow in the full story. So I'm just going to look for an arrow. Mm, Bow and arrow. I guess so. Okay, so something like that. He has a really hard time, but then he does finally hit the sorcerer, but then he runs away into a cave and is never seen again. So another good image could be a cave, but I'm going to move on. All right, so that leads us to Rebirth and Legend. Once the hero reaches their lowest point, they undergo a transformation and are re energized. So the children's book doesn't tell us much about the rebirth. In the actual story, as Sunjata travels back to his hometown, he is greeted and celebrated, and that kind of gives him the confidence he needs. All right, let's finish the children's book. All right, so the sorcerer is gone. Now Sunjata just has to go home. Sunjata returned in glory to Mali. Crowds lined the entire journey shouting his praise. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Like, as he goes home, it's this long journey, and basically it's kind of like a parade route. Like when the Braves won, people are shouting for him. So he kind of builds back up his confidence as he goes home. The 12 kings who had aided him in exile and in battle waited at his throne. As Sunjata sat, they drove their spears into the ground before him, swearing allegiance forever. So that's how the empire of Mali is established. All of these kings who help him, they swear allegiance to him, kind of making him the king of kings, and that's how the empire of Mali is created. Sunjata spoke softly, and Bala Fasiki conveyed his words to the multitude. Hatred drove me from this land, he said, because of what I seemed to be, a crawling child, unworthy of respect and unfit to rule. Mali has suffered great hardship as a result. Now I return as your king. Henceforth, none shall interfere with another's destiny. You, your children, and your children's children shall find their appointed place within this land forever. And this came to pass, and Sunjata, the Lion King, ruled the bright country for many golden years. And that is the end of the children's book version of the story. So Sunjata returns home. He becomes king, and he creates the Empire of Mali. And that is the end. For images, well, he's king. He's returned home. He's king. He is the Lion King. So, what better image to put than the Lion King? Ooh, look at this. We'll put a couple of images. Boom. All right. So, that helps us remember how the story ends. The Lion King, a lion wearing a crown, Hakuna Matata. He's going to have a happy rest of his life, I guess. All right, so that is the very basic overview of the story of Sundiata. Um, if you didn't do it while you were watching the video, now you can open your notebook and get this information from my notebook to yours. I hope you have a great day if I'm not teaching you in person or if I'm not actually seeing you on Zoom. And I will see you soon, hopefully. Bye, guys.